Hello and welcome to Thursdays on the Stoop. I'm Julian, one of Blue Stoop's co-directors. Today we have Working with Editors with Dayna Reidenouer. I'm going to let Dayna take it from here. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much. All right. So as I was saying, I'm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I own True Love Editorial Services, through which I offer line and copy editing and audiobook prep and proofing for inclusive romance, cozy mysteries, and children's books. 2 years ago, I launched Your Publishing BFF, a nurturing, neurodivergent-led coaching experience for writers that supports them from story idea to publishing success. And today I'm going to share with you insights into working with editors. Um, it can be a little intimidating to know that there are editors, but what do they do? How can they help you? Uh, what the heck is a line and copy editor, right? So we're going to start with a glossary because sometimes we use words that, um, you know, if you aren't familiar with the words, how can you interact effectively, efficiently in that environment? Writing a book may be a solitary process, but it takes a team to prepare it for publication. So I'm going to give you an overview of the publishing process. I'm going to focus on traditional and independent publishing, and talk about the different types of editors involved with those two in parts of the industry. I'm going to talk about how to find an editor, how to receive feedback, and of course, we'll have time for questions at the end. So, this glossary is a few of the words that or initialisms or abbreviations that you might come across in author spaces. MS, manuscript. Um, AU is author. Sometimes when you send a document to be edited and the editor has a question, they may preface the question with AU author. This is a question directly to you, not to say the next person who works on the document. Um, you could also leave a question for the editor in which you would start with ED. Book design is the art of laying out text and graphics for reading ease. Stet is a word that hails from the Dark Ages when we edited on paper. Stet said reject change. It was just shorthand. We're keeping it as the author has it. And a draft it's your manuscript before it is finalized for editing. So you may write one draft, you may write 7 drafts, and then you send your manuscript to the editor to work on. You may be familiar with ARC, if you've been in reader spaces like Bookstagram or Book Talk. ARC stands for Advanced Reader Copy, and that is the book when it is at the end of the publishing process. It's about to be published. It's not finalized yet. It could be a galley, it could be a proof, it could just be a sample copy. This is what you can read in advance of the publishing so that when the book goes live, when it's released, uh, readers who've had those ARC copies can publish a review and have that online and ready to go to sell for next, help hopefully encourage other readers to buy that book. You may also hear words like alpha reader, beta reader. These are types of readers during that are used throughout the writing process. Markups, uh, that is in a document, markups are the recommended changes. So if we're working in Word in a DOCX, markups are inline, They're right in the text, and I will show you examples of that later. Or if you're working on a PDF, there are symbols, there are stamps that can be used on the text to show what needs to be changed and how. Um, KDP is another big term that you'll hear a lot. It stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. This is Amazon's back end of how you get books onto the site. Um, if you check KDP Select, that means that you've opted to go into Kindle Unlimited, which is their subscription program, and it's restrictive. So, exclusive to Amazon, if you select KDP, you can KDP Select, you can only be in Kindle Unlimited. You cannot sell your ebook anywhere else. If, however, you want to go wide, which I should have put on this, going wide means you're going to sell your ebook and on like Barnes and Noble, on make it available on Libby. Those places you've gone wide. You are not exclusive to KDP, so you cannot be in Kindle Select. Query, any questions left in the comments for the writer or editor to answer? These are often rhetorical. Like the editor will ask these questions of the author, but it's not so that the editors know the answer, it's so that they get the author to think and to consider a different perspective or consider, what actually did I mean here? Let me rewrite this so it's more clear. And then you may also hear people talk about CMOS, CMOS, or MW, and you might also see these terms on a style sheet. CMOS, it stands for the Chicago Manual of Style. This is the book that guides how other books are published, how they are laid out, how they are formatted, how a book title is cited within another manuscript. If you write about someone seeing a sign, well, how do we indicate in the text that that is a sign? There, Chicago answers a lot of questions to help ensure consistency among publications. Merriam-Webster is the preferred dictionary. We use Merriam-Webster online usually, and your style sheet is there. It's there for consistency. Style sheets usually come with copy edits, and they are a record um, of the preferences and rules that the author has set. Um, so maybe, oh my God, exclamation point, you write it as one word, or you could write it OH, comma, my God. So it's to make sure that there's consistency within your manuscript. So all of this, it sounds very technical because it kind of is. Um, Writing is a passion, publishing is a business. And so editors are part of this business. Um, I love this phrase, writing is a passion, publishing is a business. It's from author and book promotion strategist LaShonda Hoffman. She has been active in publishing for years, and she runs it, she runs her writing, her work as a business. Yes, she enjoys writing, but she's doing it for more than that. Um she's making sure that she's using her resources wisely and with strategy. And hiring an editor is part of that strategy. So um writing, you know, as a passion, writing is part of this long line of um storytelling tradition, really. It can be fun, it can be low stress, and stories that have been written down, they come down to us through generations. And publishing is the act of making those stories, your your thoughts, today's thoughts, available for others to read. This may include posting to a website or social media. It could include writing a letter to the editor of a newspaper, or contracting with a publishing house. Deciding where and how to publish is a business decision. Whether to hire professional editors is another business decision. So, in essence, you have three publishing options. Traditional publishing, that is referring to being published by the Big Five: Penguin Random House, HarperCollins, Macmillan, Simon and Schuster, and Hachette, and their subsidies or their subsidiaries. So in traditional publishing, the company assumes all the risk and makes all the decisions. And they get all of the money. In independent or self-publishing, you assume all the risk, you make all the decisions, and you get all the money. In hybrid, which is also can be referred to as vanity or subsidy publishing, there are a lot of options in here. This one, you assume all the risk, and the press or the publisher provides advice and guidance, sometimes to the tune of 5 or 6 figures. So this doing a hybrid can be highly expensive if you don't pay attention to what you're signing up for. Check writersbeware.com for reviews. Victoria Strauss, in cooperation with SIFWA, the Science Fiction and Fantasy Association, has been recording scams upon scams upon scams for decades. Because there's so many options out there, so many opportunities for authors to be scammed, taken advantage of. So keep an eye on that before you sign on any dotted line. So, as I was saying, indie publishing has always existed. I'm a freelance editor, and while I'm in the editing pool for a publisher, my clients are primarily independently publishing authors. They are skipping the traditional publishing system. They are going directly to a distributor like Amazon. So, publishing initially involved elders passing on knowledge to youths in their communities via oral stories. Eventually, those stories were recorded by hand and painstakingly copied letter by scribes. The invention of the printing press by the Chinese, followed by the introduction of movable type in Europe, made mass production of books possible. Incidentally, when no publisher would buy Sense and Sensibility, Jane Austen, she of the famous Pride and Prejudice, paid a vanity press to publish it for her. So here are some of the folks that you may encounter when working in traditional publishing and trying to get your book through to readers through the traditional publishing process. So first, you'll encounter a literary agent. Most publishing houses require submissions through a literary agent. There are a few, like Harlequin. Some of their lines do not require an agent. You can do a direct submission. Um, the literary agent represents you to the publishing house, and they work on your behalf to get publishing deals. Literary agents are sometimes given wish lists or specific, shopping lists from the publishers saying this is the kind of book we're looking for, and then the literary agent will be on the lookout for those kinds of books. They are the first step in the gatekeeping process of publishing. So if you sign a literary agent, yay, the literary agent thinks your book can be sold. Like they think it has potential. This doesn't mean you have a contract yet. You don't have a publishing contract. You are still, you need to get into the next step, which is your literary agent will pass your book on to the acquiring editor at a publishing house. And the acquiring editor, if they like it, they'll offer you a contract, and then the literary agent will review that with you. Um, Once you've been signed, the acquiring editor is usually the one who does works on developmental editing for your book. Developmental editing is substantive or content editing. It's taking a look at a big overview of your story. So if we compare this to building a house, right? You need to have land, you need to have a foundation, you need to have a blueprint for how this house is being built. So that's kind of what the acquiring editor looks for. Like, do you have all of the necessary items in this house? Do you have the foundation? Do you have walls? Do you have a bathroom? Do you have a kitchen? Um, are you abiding by, are there permits that needed to be pulled? And are you abiding by the permit? When your house is finished, is this going to be a house or will it be, you know, a shed? Um, your developmental editor therefore is also looking to make sure, is your story, does it have strong world building, does it have a strong voice, does it stay in perspective, is there a character arc, is there a story arc, is this a compelling story to read? And where there's room for improvement, the acquiring editor or the developmental editor will identify those things so that you can revise. You can go through and make updates according to what they suggested. So once once your book has gone through the literary agent and the acquiring agent or the acquiring editor, you get to the line editor, and the line editor is actually a role that is starting to be eliminated in many publishing houses as a way to save cost. Um, so line editing, they would look at stylistic issues. So things like voice, clarity, readability, flow, your point of view, does it stay in the same point, the appropriate point of view, or is there head hopping? The qualities of language, and how the story is told. So they're more like in the house analogy, they are more the ones that are choosing like the wallpaper and um, the trim and making sure that you know the doors are wide enough to get through to the next room. Um, they're looking at how the house will be used and will it look good. Um, the copy editor, therefore, is the one who's like looking at everything that the line editor suggested, and it's like, okay, were these changes implemented appropriately? We're looking at, we're going word by word instead of just like concept line by line. So we are like honing in closer and closer. Um, the developmental edit was like out here, the broad picture, and now, we're kind of a funnel down. We're looking word by word, character by character, punctuation, comma by comma. So we're looking at mechanic editing. We're looking at the consistency, the correctness. We're doing polishing. We're sometimes fact checking, and then the proofreader reads the proof, like that's literally their name, to ensure that no errors were introduced during the cleanup after the copy editing. And then this person also examines the printed layout to ensure it looks good. The copy editor and proofreader are at traditional publishing houses are typically in a pool, which means they are freelancers that are contracted to work on books for the publishing house. These roles used to be in-house, but again, cost cutting. They these these are the same people who could work on books for independent authors. So depending on who you hire, you could be working with someone who, edited Rebecca Yarros's most recent book, right? So then when you come to independent publishing, you're going to see a lot of the same faces. Some people hire developmental editors to help them craft their stories before pitching to agents. So yes, they're trying to get into the trad publishing field, but they use developmental editors before they pitch to an agent just to help sure that their stories are crafted well. They may also hire copy editors to go over their query letters, their synopses, their manuscripts. Um, Sensitivity readers can actually be used in the writing process in trad publishing as well. Um, Sensitivity readers are there to ensure that whatever you're writing about is done um, sensitively. Readers want to see themselves in your books. Since people aren't formed by cookie cutters, your characters shouldn't be either. Writing diverse characters can be difficult, especially if you aren't part of that group. So you can hire a sensitivity reader, also known as a diversity, authenticity, or cultural competency reader, to give you their insights. Minoritized people aren't monoliths, but someone like your character will be able to share their feelings and reactions to the portrayal and its believability. And then you can do line and copy editing again, like in trad. In the freelance world, line and copy editing is often done simultaneously, and copy editing and proofreading are the words, the services, they're frequently used interchangeably now. So, because we don't, especially if you're publishing an ebook, we don't have those proofs, those, the layout sheets that the static pages that we need to examine anymore. So, all that to say, when you work with an editor, be sure you're clear on what services they provide and how they define those services. So, working with freelancers, you've decided you want to hire a freelancer to help you at some stage in the process. So this is what I'm going to recommend here is applicable to all publishing service providers, whether you're working with book formatters, graphic designers, illustrators for your covers or inside your books, indexers, audiobook narrators. Like these are some of the things that you can use to make sure you're choosing someone who's quality and someone you will have a good working relationship with. So first, where do we find these people? Well, I like to go to professional organizations. I'm on the board of the Editorial Freelancers Association. I love this group. We have about 3,000 members, maybe more. We do a whole variety of things. It's a great place to start for searching for people who work in your genre, who do the kinds of services you're looking for. These are people who care enough to be a member of an organization, pay the not inexpensive fee to be a member, and have access to all sorts of training and continuing professional development. Um, they may not be taking advantage of them, but at least they have access to them. And hopefully, by being part of the group, they are, taking in some of that information. Um, I also recommend the Black Editors and Proofreaders Directory. A lot of people don't know that exists. I think it's super awesome that it does, and I refer loads of people there. The LGBTQ plus Editors Association, I'm a member there. We have um, on our website, there's a place for you to submit a request if you'd like to work with some sort of queer editor, if you have a book with queer themes in it, or you just want to work with a queer author because editor because maybe you're queer yourself. The LGBTQ plus Editors Association is great to go there. The Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and I just see a typo. Um, I will fix that before I make this PDF and send it to Julian. But SCBWI is like the premier children's book organization. So start there if you're looking for illustrators or editors. Then yes, we have the Professional Editors Network, the Alliance for Independent Ed Authors, and some other organizations. You can also find editors or other professionals through Facebook profiles and Facebook groups. There, if you Google or plug into your Facebook search editor, you will get loads of groups. Um, Sometimes it's overwhelming, but they're there. You can also look on Instagram, on LinkedIn, Threads, Blue Sky, any social media network. We're there. Other ways to find a professional is to ask your writer friends. Ask who they've worked with. Did they like the work they did? Was it a good experience? Would they recommend them? Um, get to know them. They might not be the right person for you, but hey, that's one person you've eliminated from your search. So now you can go on and find somebody else. You can also check in the copyright pages and acknowledgments of books that you like. We always say that authors have the final say. So the book that is published is not necessarily a direct reflection on the skill of the editor because, the author can reject suggested changes. But if you read a book that looks really good, at least you know that the editor hasn't screwed things up. So, that's one place to look to see, um, at least, check out a name to see if they're a possibility for you. All right, so you found some people, you found some ideas, so here's your selection criteria. Make sure they're in your genre or your subgenre. I work in romance, cozy mysteries, and children's books. Do not come to me with a horror book. That's not my jam. I will not do a good job on I won't even want to open your manuscript. So you want somebody who knows the genre conventions, who knows what readers want in your genre. Um, you want to be very careful, very specific there. Make sure they're using the right language. I work in American English. I can translate Britishisms to English, American English, but I'm not so great going the opposite direction. And then you have Canadian English, which is kind of like a mixture between these two. And sorry, I'm not the right fit for that. If, however, you are writing in Canadian English and want it edited in American English, I can do that. That's not a problem. You want to make sure that your editor's turnaround time and availability suit your schedule. You may want to make sure that there's an alignment of values. Um, I am a queer author and editor. I'm probably not going to ask a conservative Christian editor to work on my books because my values don't align with theirs. You want to ensure that your editor has skills and training. Don't be, um, if they offer a really good price, like a really good price, don't be tricked by that. Ensure that they are actually skilled, that they are not just running your manuscript through ProWriting Aid or Grammarly. I mean, those are things you could do yourself. And those two programs are known to put errors into your document. So yeah, make sure your professional is actually a professional, is trained, has experience. Be very careful about what services are included in your pricing. Um, make sure if you want a developmental edit that you aren't getting a copy edit and vice versa. And then you want to ask for a sample edit. So what do you do with a sample edit? What is a sample edit? So you want to send your latest draft, and sometimes the editor will want to see the whole thing, and other times they just want a section. So it's very easy to, when you do a sample edit, it's easy to just take the first chapter and send that. But the first chapter tends to be worked on the most, and you tend to spend the most time, finessing it. So that's not going to be a great example of your work, and it's not going to give the editor much to show you what they can do. So if possible, send them the roughest part, the gnarliest part, the part that you have struggled with the most. Send it to them to be worked on so that they can see, okay, this is the worst it will be, so I can give them X price. And you can look at when it comes back, you can be like, oh my goodness, they untangled that tricky area. They worked wonders. They're miracle workers. Yes, I want this person. You can, and then, I mean, even if you don't do that, you should still make sure that you review the edits, whatever sample you send them. Consider what they changed, consider what they didn't change. Um, if you know that something is categorically wrong or incorrect in that context and they didn't change it, maybe look for somebody else, or put them a little bit lower on your ranked list of options. You also want to make sure that you don't want too much of your story to be changed. Like this is your book. You want your author voice to come through. Editing should enhance it. It should not change it, eliminate it, get rid of it. Your voice needs to stay. And then you also need to ask, were the comments clear and understandable? If you can't interpret what they wrote, what kinds of things they were asking about, they aren't going to be helpful to you on your publishing journey. So you've gone through this process, you've identified someone you want to work with. What do you do next? Well, you hire an editor. So expect a contract. This should lay out things like price, deadlines, turnaround times, what they will and what they won't do. This may also include clauses on how to break the relationship, how to cancel the contract. What happens if your editor gets sick or dies? What happens if you get sick and you can't get the manuscript to them on time? What is their stance on generative artificial intelligence? A lot of us are including sections in our contracts saying we do not work with content that is generated by artificial intelligence. Um, you may also have, um, let's see what else, copy your contract. You'd also want to include things like if you send a manuscript that is much longer than the editor was planning for, what is going to happen with the cost then? Will it rise? Will they include it in their initial quote that they provided? Like that contract should cover everything. Some contracts are super long, and that's cool. Just make sure you read it carefully. You don't need a non-disclosure agreement unless you are a super famous person, possibly, or perhaps you work in a sensitive industry and you're publishing like high steam romance. Then you may need at least a pen name and to communicate to your editor that, hey, um, keep this on the down low. You can talk about my pen name, but don't talk about my personal name. And then also you want to prepare for equitable compensation. So this will look like there's usually a deposit. Then after the work has been completed, you have to pay the balance. And if those two, things aren't good for you, aren't swinging for you, ask about payment plans. Some authors do, they recognize that working with an editor is expensive. It's an investment. And so a lot of us will give payment plans to authors who might not be able to swing that investment like all in one chunk. So here's a breakdown, a visual breakdown of what kind of work and costs could go into writing a book. To create a quality book, you need to invest in quality products and services. So you're hiring professionals, so expect to pay a living wage. This book is Killer Croquet on the Emerald Isle, written by Jane Elsey, published in 2023. And she created this graphic to show what went into her book. So it's 80,000 words, 325 pages. It took her 11 months from beginning to published. Um, she researched, she wrote, and she edited during those 11 months. And then she hired a whole bunch of professionals to help her get this published. Um, Rough breakdown, your cover could cost between $100 and $500. Developmental editing for 80,000 words, about $2,000. Beta reading, about 500. Line and copy editing is $1,000 each. Proofreading, $800. Formatting is $100. Her ISBN codes, um, one for $125, or she could buy 10 for $295. Great savings. She could file with the U.S. Copyright Office. That can cost $45 to $65. And then advertising. If she's buying advertising, she could spend from like $5 to $10,000 a day. The way she set it up, it took her about 500 book sales. She had to sell 500 book sales to break even. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're planning your publishing process. So when you send your manuscript to your editor for whatever kind of work, there's a best way to send it, and this is laid out in Chicago manual style too. So typically, editors like to see your manuscript set in Microsoft Word, Times New Roman font, 12-point type, double spaced, paragraphs indented using the paragraph indent function, not the tab key or spacebar, and no space between paragraphs. If the manuscript has been converted to Microsoft Word from another program, if you've written it in Pages, in Google Docs, or in Scrivener, make sure that you take special care when you convert it to a Word doc so that all formatting issues have been resolved. Um, Sometimes, if I have gotten some horrendous documents that one, I had to spend 4 hours on working on the formatting alone. And after I was done, I sent it back to my contracting editor and I was like, no, I don't want to see this again. Like, I saw enough of the book that the story was not one that I would look forward to. And after having to do all this prep work to get the document itself into a workable system for manuscript, it's like, I don't want to see it again. So yeah, pay attention to your formatting. And communication. Communication is key. Be yourself. We're not judging your grammar. And like a friend of mine has said, we're coin operated. We only work when you pay us. So don't be afraid that when you send us, query emails to start, that we're going to judge you. No, you're a person. We are people. We make mistakes too. You've seen it in this document on this presentation already. We aren't judging you. And even when you are hiring us and we are working for you, we aren't judging. We just want to help you make your book the best that it can be and appeal to readers and give them that immersive reading experience. Keep in mind that no news is usually good news. My turnaround time for line and copy edits is 2 weeks for anything under 100,000 words. I'm not going to stop after the first week and email you and be like, I've reached this point and I'm making progress. If I have to stop and do that with every project, I'm just going to charge more because that's just more hassle. Um, 2 weeks turnaround. If you don't hear from me, that's fine. Now, if you have a developmental edit, some editors take like 6 weeks, 8 weeks to do those. Um, Hearing from your editor at some point during that is something, I mean, you can certainly ask for that if they don't already offer it. Um, if you have a deadline though, and you don't hear from it after the deadline has passed, um, then yeah, definitely be worried there. Reach out, make sure everything's okay. Find out why they haven't gotten your project back to you by then. Um, Query responses, like I said before, they aren't expected. I've had I've had authors respond to me, like send me emails with like all the answers listed. I'm like, that's great. I'm glad you took the time to answer these questions. I just didn't need to know. I was asking on behalf of readers. They need more information in the text so to answer these questions. And then use your coaching calls. Whenever I do a manuscript evaluation, I offer a coaching call after I've sent back my feedback because I want them to be able to ask me questions or brainstorm with me to solve any of the issues that I saw in the manuscript. Um, I did not list coaching on my list of publishing professionals, but a coach can come in at any point in the process and support you in whatever area you need that support. So now, receiving feedback. The key to this is knowing that your feedback is personalized, it is not personal. So have you understand the difference there? So you are the editor. I mean, you are the author. Editors have training and experience, but they're not infallible. There's about a 95% catch rate of in the industry. Like that's about what you can expect. And you have to acknowledge that your vision might not be clear. So start with a mindset of inquisitiveness. What can I learn from this? All right. Be open to that, to receiving information. Add in humility, but keep in mind, be strong about it. I don't know everything, but I can learn anything. Recognize that not all advice is for you. Take what you can and leave the rest. I mean, yes, you hired this person. Realize that your editor's advice is that of only one person. You hired them, but it's only one person. So trust, but verify. You can accept some, all, or none. And if you need to, ask for clarification. So, here from some of my colleagues about memoir or academic writing. Um, Basically, Tanya Gold says they're enhancing the way that you've conveyed your experience in writing. You and your editor are working together to help your readers better experience your writing, with you. In academic specific advice, D. Scott said, they're, as the editor, they're not reviewer number two. So the author doesn't have to justify why they did or did not take their advice or suggestions. Uh, but hey, if there are questions that your editor is asking, kind of take that in mind. Getting technical. So in Word, which is the standard, we use something called track changes. This is an example of simple markup. Simple markup is there are no changes marked in the document, but there are these red lines on the side. So track changes is turned on and you have these simple markup. They indicate that there is a change but they do not say what it is. It's simple. Keep this in mind when I show you this one. It is not simple. It is messy. This is showing all markup. So your red lines here at the side are now grayed out because the corrections are shown here. So once you have this, when you're on this kind of screen, if you come over, there are two ways to accept your answers. You can right click on the word itself, and in the drop down menu, you can accept or reject the change. Or over in the top bar, you can, in the track changes section, if you click tracking, you can accept or reject, and you can advance, previous, or next. So that's just super quick overview of that. Have it tips and tricks yet? Establish and maintain an organized file naming system. Yes. Book name underscore month day file extension. No. Book name final. Use this one. Actually, final, it's a mess. It looks awful when it comes to us because I save it as underscore dr edit. So like book name final, use this one. Actually, final, Dayna, edits, and then it goes back to you. And then do you add final after that? So simplify it. Practice self-editing. Self-editing can help you get to know your book better. It can also cut down on the errors and the number of changes that your editor may have to make, and that will save you money. Start saving money yesterday. As I mentioned, it's super expensive. Get samples from multiple service providers and trust your gut. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Good, fast, or cheap. Pick two. You can't have all three. So I've included some resources here, information about the big five publishers and their subsidiaries, the link to hire freelancers at the EFA. I have two articles here about alpha, beta, and ARC readers and how to use a book editor. The writing and editing podcast that a friend of mine runs. I've been a guest on this podcast several times. It's a wealth of information about writing, editing, publishing. And then my favorite resource, printed resource, is The Magic of Fiction, Crafting Words into Story, The Writer's Guide to Writing and Editing by Beth Hill. And then I have a couple special offers for you all. If you would like a line or copy edit of up to 5,000 words, I will provide inline comments and thorough explanations of changes, and I will provide a style sheet so that you can apply those changes through the rest of the book. I'm offering that for only $300 right now. Or you can schedule a free half-hour coaching call. For either of those, just tell me you saw me on Blue Stoop. And as like always, I offer a 15% discount on my prices for marginalized writers. You don't have to go into detail, but you can ask for that discount and I will be happy to give that to you. So after all of that, please keep in touch. I am via email at hello@yourpublishingbff.com or on the web at yourpublishingbff.com and Instagram and threads at, you guessed it, yourpublishingbff.com. So according to my timer here, we have about 10 minutes for questions. So Julian or Warren, do we have questions in the chat that you'd like to ask?
See any in the chat yet, but we might give people a second to type some out.
Okay, wonderful. I was seeing some things pop up. Ooh, a journalist and editor with a novel in progress. Awesome. Editing for journalism is so different from editing for novels, Elena. My background is in journalism as well. And it's not only going from the Associated Press style guide to CMOS to Chicago Manual of Style, It's the whole tone changes. My paper was super strict about no starting sentences with a conjunction, but we do that all the time in novel writing, right? Uh, so that's something you have to learn to relax on some things. Working on a historical thriller novel. Ooh, that sounds fun. My first book was a collection of fiction. Now I'm writing a novel. Um,
Yeah,
any tips for nonfiction writers seeking editors with specific knowledge bases or areas of expertise? Yes. So the EFA is a great place to go for this because you can search by keywords. So I have a background in fiber arts and in music as well, but I don't think I have music in my profile, but I do mention fiber arts in my profile. So if you are looking for someone who um has a background in knitting, um and you type in knitting in the as one of the keywords, I should come up. Now, I'm not going to be the right editor for your project, probably because you're looking for your nonfiction writer, but you can do that for other things. I know that there's a person who has she lists in her bio that she has experience in archery. Um, And you want to ask too, in general, ask what other books they've worked on. So like if you are working on a cookbook and you do a search for a cookbook editor, find out what kinds of cookbooks they've done before. Um, are they familiar with your type of cooking, your style? Um, are ha, you know Are they familiar with imperial versus metric measurements? What are their strong points? That's really where you have to communicate with them, to talk with them and get to know them and see if they're a good fit for your project. Does that help, Gabrielle? Yay. Awesome. Okay, yes. What do you do for if you have zero resources? Are there checklists people can use when revising their own work? Yes, there are plenty of checklists around the internet. I believe KM Weiland, Weiland, has one. Beth Hill, actually, that book that I recommended, she has a whole section on self-editing and how to revise your book, things to look through for. Um, you can, a lot of authors, especially newer authors, tend to use a lot of adverbs, words like very or just or only or I began to. So like those are phrases that you can do a search on your computer on your in your document to find and look at the whole sentence and be like, I really don't need that. I can get rid of that. So it provides some clarity to your document, kind of streamlines it, tightens it up, and it actually will help to make your pacing, improve your pacing, which can serve your books really well. Yes, short stories. Short stories are fun. Um, Short stories are hard because you have such a small amount of space to make a lot happen. Um, and the words that you choose are especially important in those short stories. Um, It depends, Fran, on the genre, whether I would be a good fit for you. But feel free to email me. I would love to talk with you about that. And if I'm not the right editor for you, I'd be happy to refer you to someone who is. That's one of the things I love about being an editor. We have a really strong community. It's a huge community. So that if you think that you target someone, you're like, yes, I want to work with you, and then they're not available or you're not a good fit. Um, Ask for a referral because they probably know somebody who would be better. And everyone's happy then in that situation.
Thank you. You were
You're welcome.
terrific. So I'd love to be able to use you. So I will get in
Oh,
touch.
all right. Well, I'll look forward to it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
So I think that's everything then, Julian.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dana. You're such a wealth of information. And I really appreciate perspective. I've shared some links in the chat for a feedback survey. You can tell Dana what a great job they did and let us know what kind of sessions you'd like to see in the future. Please fill that out. It doesn't take very long. And we'll also post the recording of this video on YouTube and send it out to everyone who registered. There's also a link for spring classes, which are still open for registration. There's financial aid available, payment plans. We're doing our best to make it accessible to everyone. So check it out. Let me know if you have questions. You can always hit the contact us button on the website if you need to talk to a human being. Upcoming events, more workshops like this one. There's some really great ones coming up. Crafting the online essay, I believe, might be next week's. Don't quote me on that. Our weekly newsletter, so you don't have to memorize our schedule. We'll just email it to you every week. How convenient. And of course, last but not least, if you want to pitch in to sustain free sessions like this one, visit bluestoop.org/donate. We don't have any expectations. We're just glad you're here. But if you have the means and want to help us out, we are very grateful. With that, thank you so much for being here and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again, Dana. I'll hover for a minute in case anyone needs to grab a link.